We've been talking about the sacred nature of freedom, how it must be fought for against the many machines in society that are trying to take it away. In the fight against the global cabal of politicians and billionaires and corporations, our next guest has conducted a clinic on the anatomy of the globalist and why they want your freedoms so badly. Seamus Bruner is ripping the lid off the puppet masters in globalism once and for all. Best-selling author of Controligarchs, exposing the billionaire class, their secret deals, and the globalist plot to dominate your life. Seamus, thank you for joining us. You've detailed a laundry list of oligarchs around the world who control very powerful categories of our lives. Who are these people, and is Joe Biden still their candidate?
Hey, Chanel, it's great to be with you. Yes, the Controligarchs, as I call them, they're making a lot of secret deals right now. No, nobody who, nobody backs Biden. Really, it's just a smaller and dwindling group of loyalists that is increasingly looking like just his family members. He's got a few allies left in the media. There's actually one Controligarch who sent an email recently backing Joe, but that was a week ago. He's probably walked it back. That would be Reid Hoffman, the big tech oligarch, co-founder of LinkedIn. He says that we got to ride with Biden, but that was, again, a week ago. Listen, these guys, they invest in power. They don't invest in any one man. They hedge their bets. George Soros is a Controligarch, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos. I define them as the billionaires and bureaucrats plotting and scheming to dominate every aspect of your life. So if they want to control your life, the person they want is the person who gives them the best chance of doing that. And so they've sort of remained quiet. That's the smart move, is not to pick sides openly just yet. Wait till you see who the candidate is, and they are making deals again behind the scenes. But time will tell. I mean, I think we've only got a couple weeks left before we get some sort of an announcement.
Well, we've had a few names circling the wagons. I think that Hillary Clinton obviously wants very much to be back in the ring. We have Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer. These are all people who potentially would be very good candidates for, as you call them, controligarchs, because they can be influenced by money and they can be influenced by this globalist agenda.
Yeah, that's right. All of those candidates you've mentioned, all of those politicians you've mentioned have taken enormous sums from the Controligarchs. The Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation, one of their largest donors was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So Gates is quite close to them. Same thing with George Soros and the Open Society Foundation. So they've bagged a ton of cash from both Soros and Gates and others. Gavin Newsom is very close with the Soros family, especially Alex Soros, who's dating, Huma Abedin. So it's a one big club, and we're not in it. It's going to come down to which candidate can they actually push past the voters and the illusion of democracy that seems the Democrats are so obsessed with. They talk about our democracy all the time, but it's really people like George Soros, people like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg with his Zuckerbucks, choosing who their candidates are going to be. I mean, I don't know how the Democrats can talk about our democracy and then put forward a candidate that nobody voted on.
No, you're right. And the blessing to them of Joe Biden was that he was ultimately controllable. He was someone who did not, he actually operated on instruction. He couldn't really think or stand for himself. We've known this for months. So the disaster for the people at this level who operate at this scale of power is that they now cannot keep fooling the American people about their puppet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, all the way back in 2020, it was well known that Joe Biden was not up to the task. I mean, he was having the same cognitive issues back then. It's, of course, he's declined substantially since then, but he had no business running the administration, and we know that he wasn't. It was all of these sort of shadowy advisors behind him. He had a lot of BlackRock personnel. That's a Controligarch entity pulling the strings. All of his advisors are working for some other interests. And so we knew this in 2020, and it was a very undemocratic process back then. If you'll remember that all of the primary candidates, the Democratic primary candidates, they dropped out in unison before Super Tuesday and pledged their delegates to Joe Biden, knowing full well that they were sharper than he was, all in a successful attempt to knife Bernie Sanders in the back. And so they'll do it again. I mean, the Democratic Party, they work as a unit. There's some squabbles and infighting that's happening right now, and various media stories will leak out. I just saw that a Kamala Harris story came out where it said the black community is not going to stand for passing over Kamala Harris and having, let's say, a Gavin Newsom leapfrog. I think that's right. I mean, the whole woke DEI agenda of the left, how will they be able to swap someone in when Kamala Harris is right there in line? It's looking pretty messy.
But it probably would take a lot of zeros behind a check. Or a gigantic check that would go on privately. So looking at the list of candidates, looking at the people across the board who are vying for the White House, what do you think of Robert Kennedy Jr.? And I have my opinions about why the Controligarchs haven't backed him up. Why do you think they haven't backed him up?
Well, I mean, he's ostensibly anti-establishment. He's ostensibly anti-war. He's definitely anti-vax, and all of the Controligarchs invested huge amounts of money into the vaccine agenda, the mRNA technology. They believe that mRNA is the future of medicine, can cure cancer and possibly even death. That was according to even Elon Musk, who said that these therapies, these gene therapies, have a possibility of reversing aging. So when you have a guy like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is anti-vaccine and medical stuff like that, they're not going to really support that. And he spent his whole life doing that, so I believe he's true to his word on being anti-vaccine.
And we know why the Controligarchs can't and do not support Donald Trump. They can't control this guy. They know that they can't pay him off. They can't bribe him. And it's not that they can't make money off of an America First agenda. They just want to make more money. And to do that, they have to go overseas. And Donald Trump is standing squarely in their way when they're trying to make money beyond America's borders.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I documented time and again in the book, the number one goal of the Controligarchs is to transfer power and control away from individual countries and individual people like the United States, like you and me, and give that power to international institutions which they control. Organizations like the World Health Organization or the United Nations or the World Bank. They want these global institutions to be able to control our lives. And so the United States is a big problem. And so when Donald Trump says something like, we will never surrender this country to the false song of globalism, that is red flags for the Controligarchs. They do not want a person like that. They do not want countries putting their country first. They want to surrender to Davos, to Brussels, and really turn our North America into something like the European Union.
Before I let you run, Seamus, I wanted your take on the WHO's, their gigantic treaty that they tried to get the United States to sign off on. There were a very small contingent of patriots who stood up, got Congress involved, said we as the United States cannot sign on to this medical emergency treaty that the WHO is trying to push on us because it will just trample over every civil liberty imaginable. Where is that? Has it died? Are they holding it until the next administration? What are your thoughts on that WHO treaty they tried to get us involved in?
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons that this election is so important, because depending on who is in power, they can implement piecemeal various aspects of this. You saw it with the Paris Climate Accord. That's a treaty that Donald Trump overturned when he got into office, and then Joe Biden worked very hard to put back into place. And so it's never over. It has suffered some pretty big setbacks, this World Health Organization pandemic treaty. Lots of countries are waking up to this false song of globalism. And so it will come back. I mean, it's the same thing with the Green New Deal. That appeared to have died for a while, and then Joe Biden rebranded it as Build Back Better, or hilariously, the Inflation Reduction Act. And that's how they poured tons of money into these efforts. So We know that they can implement it sort of piecemeal on the state-by-state level.
Yeah.
If you live in a red state, you probably had a better pandemic experience than if you lived in a blue state. And so the blue states will probably adopt, even if it's not a treaty, a lot of the initiatives of the World Health Organization pandemic treaty.
That is a scary and a very great point you make. Yeah, because just because we don't sign it on the national level does not mean it disappears. They're kind of like cockroaches, if you will. Seamus, thank you so much for joining us for the time. Author of Controligarchs. This is a must-read book if you want to understand the whys of how all of this is playing out. Seamus, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chanel.
It's time now for Mark My Words, where we search high and low for the country's finest prognosticators. And the world right now is certainly a crazy place. We don't know if our president is coming or going. The Justice Department continues to overreach. And we don't know which defendant, instead of burgers, is going to be flipped and grilled tomorrow. But maybe, just maybe, someone does. And maybe can predict that brighter days are ahead. Let's take a listen.
Mark my words, folks, it's your favorite president, Donald Trump here, reporting for duty, making some strong predictions for 2024. I predict that Sleepy Joe, they're not going to put him in the White House. They're going to put him in a nursing house, a nursing home, as they call it. You know we like to call it that. Did you see him the other night? I didn't understand the end of that sentence. I don't think he did either. He beat Medicare. He beat it to death. He was totally lost. He was like a lost grandpa. Send Sleepy Joe to a nursing home and put me back in the White House. That's your favorite president, 45, soon to be 47.
Time will tell. Submit your predictions to markmywords at oann.com. And if you haven't already, download the OAN Live app on your TV and your favorite streaming devices. Spread the word. And I leave you with this. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.